Hi, I'm Donna Jordan from Jordan Fabrics. Today I'd like to show you how to make a pattern called hot crossed buns. This uses yardage, it doesn't use any sort of pre-cut. And I'm going to use a dark blue and a light blue for where they have green and burgundy there. And then for the background, you can see here it calls for background whites 3 1/8 yards, but you can use a variety of backgrounds. You can see in the front here, it's not all the same print, and I like that look, so that's what I'm going to use here. I'm going to use 5 different backgrounds. First things first, let's get everything cut out. This is a pattern designed by Doug Lecco from Antler Quilt Designs, and he always has nice charts inside his patterns to show you exactly how to get everything cut out. All of the pieces are cut out and we are ready to start sewing. The first pieces we need are a light background and one of each of these, and we're going to stitch these onto here, but we need to mark the back side of these before we stitch them. I'm going to mark them right here on my cutting board. I've got a diagonal line going right here, and I'm putting the corner of this right there, and I'm just going to draw a pencil line. You can use chalk, anything that will show up a little bit. I'm going to put my ruler almost on the line, a shade over that way, so that when I draw, this will be on the line. Then for the other piece, we don't want the line going the same way. We want the line going the opposite way. So all I'm going to do is turn this so that that corner is where those lines intersect, and draw the line that way. And then you'll see I'm going to have 2 rectangles that have lines oriented the opposite way. Here's the 3 pieces. We're going to sew this one on that line, and then when we open it up it'll look like that, and then we'll sew this one this way, and we'll make a point right in the middle. So let's start with this one. I'm going to line up these corners, and I'm going to stitch right on the line that I drew. And you'll notice when I start stitching, I'm starting in that corner. And the reason I'm telling you that is because there is a way to do this without drawing the line. And basically, all we're doing is stitching from that corner to that corner. And I'll show you how to do that another method in just a minute. This gets opened up, and I'm going to finger press it right now. You can take it to the ironing board, but finger pressing works good enough for now. And then I'm going to trim off these back 2 layers, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now this other piece, which has the line going in the opposite direction, we're going to do the same method. We're going to line up these 2 edges and stitch along that drawn line. And a good way to tell if you've done it correctly is if you open this up, it should make one long straight piece here. Now mine is not perfect because see how it's folded over and there's a little bit of that background showing? That means I didn't line it up perfectly. And so this is not a big deal. I'm going to go ahead and use it, but on my next one, I will be a little more careful when I lay this piece onto here so that I have it on there perfectly. See, I didn't line it up exactly right. So it's not perfect, but it will still work in our patchwork. I need to make a second one of these, but it needs to be a mirror image. So I'm going to use the same method, but I'm going to draw the lines on these pieces opposite to what I did here. So when it's done, it'll look like this, but the mirror image. For this next set, I'm going to show you how to do it without drawing lines. This piece is going to get lined up on these 2 sides. And then you can either do like I did, put a line on your sewing machine, or you can use this tape that you put on here And we're going to keep that point and the opposite point here on the line as we go. Now the first one, all you have to do is put it up at your needle, and then that far corner stays on the line as you stitch. You can always lift it up to see if you're still on the line. And that will give you the same exact result. I stitched up a few of the blocks each side, and because I'm doing a scrappy version with different background fabrics, I'm going to pick two that have different prints here. And then we're going to take one of these pieces and it's going to go in the middle. These are all the same length, so we're just going to stitch both seams. And we will press the seam allowances toward the middle. And that's the way they want to go anyway, because we've got these seam allowances here. It just makes it easier to press toward the middle. The next block we're going to make is similar. It's going to have a long one in the middle, but on the sides, we're only going to have dark at one end. So let's say it's this end. These would both go on the top here, and it'll be the same shape, but it won't have this part. There's the second block. It was stitched up exactly the same method, but we only had to put a piece on one end because this piece was longer than that piece there. We also needed some blocks made the same way, but with the other color only on one end. So I went ahead and stitched that one as well. The next block we're going to make is a simple 9 patch. We need 4 of this color, and let's use 4 of this one for the corners, and then the opposite accent color in the middle. Pretty easy to stitch up. Make them into rows, sew the rows together. We'll start with the top row here, and I'm going to press all the seam allowances toward the darkest color. That makes it real easy to remember which way to go, and what'll happen is then when we sew our rows together, at the intersections, the seam allowances will nest. When they nest, it's very easy to get everything lined up and matched correctly. I'm going to need to make a total of 6 blocks like that, and then I'm going to make 6 more with the other accent color and the other dark. The next item we need to make is a flying geese block, and we're going to make these in bulk. So I'm going to take the accent color and I'm going to draw a line right along the diagonal on the back side. This is my favorite method for making flying geese blocks, and it looks a little funny. If you haven't tried it before, you might be wondering, I don't think that's going to work. But what we're going to do is line up these blocks on opposite corners, and we're going to stitch down both sides of the line 1/4 inch away from the drawn line. So you can pin this here if you want, but it's not real big, so I think I can hold it in place. Now I'm just going to swing it around and go down the other side. I'm going to cut right along the drawn line. You can use scissors if you like, or use your blade, and then take these to the ironing board and press both of these pieces away from the middle. You can do them one at a time, or you can press both, but you want to try to keep it undistorted, so try not to stretch anything. If you add a little steam, that anchors it in place nicely. I'm back at the machine with both of these funny shaped pieces and 2 more squares that have lines on them. Put that in the corner, and again stitch on both sides of that drawn line. when we cut these apart, right on that line, what we end up with is 2 flying geese blocks from that half and 2 more from this half. The last step is to make sure they're the right size, because they are planned to come out a little bigger than the finished size. So we want them 2.5 by 4.5, and right now it's about 4 3/4 by 2 3/4. So I'm going to trim it first. First, I'm just going to trim off that dog ear on this side, and then I'm going to line this side up on one of my lines because I want to trim all the excess off of this side. If I trim off of this side, I might not leave enough to have a seam allowance there. So I want this exactly 2.5 wide. So we're going to trim off a little bit there. And then we're going to want to trim the same amount off of each side. So you have a couple options. You can line up your point there on a line. And we're going to want 4.5 total. That's 2 1/4 off of each side. From the middle, 2 1/4 over, which is that line there and that line there. And so what we end up with is the size we need, 2.5 by 4.5, and we also end up with those seams going right to the corners and a 1/4 inch seam from that point to the bottom. Another option, if you have one of these twirling boards, it makes it a little bit easier to trim. So this has a lot of lines on it, and again, I like to center that point on a line. You can always tell if you've got the center by putting your ruler down. I'm not quite in the center. I'm going to move it over a little bit, double check, and this way you can spin and trim and you don't have to pick up the patchwork block at all. So it's a lot easier to trim everything. So we can just spin it around, measure over 2.5 like that. So that'll save you a little bit of time. Those are done. For the next block, we're going to take one of each of these large pieces here, and we're going to cut along both diagonals. And what we're going to do is just swap some pieces here. So we're going to end up with some patchwork blocks that have 2 of each fabric. You want to be a little careful when you sew these because that edge is a bias cut, so it could stretch, but it's pretty short. That one there, and then that half, and all we have to do is switch directions that the seam allowances are pressed. So this one is going to go that direction, and I'm carefully finger pressing it so I don't stretch the seam, and then the other seam the opposite way. Very easy, the corners all match up. You can feel the intersection in the middle there. And we have a nice 1/4 square triangle. Last step is to trim this down to size. It gets trimmed to 4.5 inches, so be sure to trim a little bit off of each side so that will stay in the center. There's that block all trimmed to size, and I went ahead and made some flying geese blocks with the other accent color, and we're going to use 2 of those. They go on the side of that block that they match, and 2 of these. And then for the 4 corners, we've got these blocks here, and I'm just trying to make sure that I use a variety. I'm not trying to match these at all. I'm just trying to get different colors so that it looks nice and patchy. And we'll take all this over to the machine and get it stitched up. It's pretty easy to sew everything together. Make 3 rows, sew the 3 rows together. Because everything is trimmed, all the pieces are going to fit real nice. For the top and bottom row, press the seam allowances away from the center. And then for the middle row, we'll press them toward the center. Those are all 6 blocks that we need to make the whole quilt. So I've got to go ahead and stitch up all the rest of the pieces into these 6 shapes. Then we can get ready to lay the quilt out. I've got all the blocks stitched up and I'm ready to lay out the quilt. This one is kind of fun to do. So the bottom row is going to have these blocks. And then between these blocks, we're going to start off, let's start off with this one here. And this same dark color will be facing away from there. And then one of these that's got color on both ends is going to go here. And then we've got one of these guys in here. And the way you pick is not the one that has the same colors, the one that has the opposite colors. So this one is going to go here. And then the other color is going to go here. And I'm going to keep building it out and we'll start to see what the pattern looks like. There, that's all the blocks. And now we're really starting to see these stars pop out. There's the lighter blue star. So all we have to do is put the rows together and then sew all the rows. And then there's a couple of borders. Now the border, because I've got a variety of backgrounds here, we're going to cut these into some smaller pieces. And the pattern says to seam them with a diagonal seam, but I noticed the picture of the quilt on the pattern uses straight seams. So I'm not sure which I'm going to use yet. I'll probably try both ways and see which one I like better. Then I'll get it finished up and load it onto the quilting machine. I've got the quilt all loaded up and we need to pick a thread color. I've got 5 different colors and I think any of them would work. This pink, it's a little bit rosier than the pink that's in there, but honestly it blends so well you can't see anything. I've got a couple blue shades. I don't think that's going to show. A light blue, it's going to show even less. Even in the darkest print here, it's not going to show much. This is a little peachier than my Dusty Rose. Blends in perfectly, and of course you can always use, this is a cream, slightly darker than the backgrounds. I think honestly that I will go with the lightest blue. For the quilting pattern, I wanted to do flowers. There's little flowers all over all of the prints, and this one, which is called Posies, that should be just perfect. I've got the hot cross buns quilt all done, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Mine looks different than the pattern because I think the stars, these pink stars, are very prominent in my quilt, and they're a little bit more muted here, which is nice. They're just 2 different looks. I also like that we've got the very dark blue there, and then the other star has this much lighter blue, so you get a lot of different things when you look at it. The borders are all pieced, and I went ahead and did straight seams here. I didn't do the diagonal seams, but you could do the diagonal seams if you like. It's entirely a matter of preference. The quilting doesn't show really at all. It's a nice rose pattern. I can't see it on the back with that busy print there, and it's just a hint of curliness here, which is very nice. It was a pretty easy pattern to make, and it turned out, let's see, 58 by 72. You could easily make it bigger, just make more of each of the blocks and expand your pattern, or even add some more borders. Thanks so much for watching our video today. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll be sure to answer. Now at the end of every video, we do a giveaway. Today's giveaway is a quilt called Wave Runner. We made this in a video. We showed how to make a quilt like this. And this is just one variation of the Wave Runner quilt. It has these nice abstract, almost diamond shapes running throughout the quilt. But today you can win the quilt and it's very easy to enter. Just click the link right below this video that says giveaway and put in your name and your email address and you might be the lucky winner. Now if you like our videos and you want to support us, the best thing you can do is subscribe to our YouTube channel. That really helps us out. Happy quilting!